The Lost Runestone and either frozen north was changing. Since the night the black aurora appeared across the sky, the land of Midgard had begun to awaken ancient powers long buried beneath the world. Wolves carrying the blood of Fenrir roamed the forests. Frost giants walked again through the mountains, and something ancient stirred beneath the dark seas. But the creatures were not the only things returning. The old knowledge was waking as well. Long before the Viking clans built their villages and sailed their longships across the frozen waters, the gods had left warnings across the north. Warnings carved in stone, warnings written in runes. Most of those runestones had been lost to time, buried beneath glaciers, crushed by earthquakes, or forgotten by the people who once feared them. But one of those stones still existed. Hidden deep within the mountains beyond the northern forests. The elders of Skarnford had spoken of it for generations. They called it the Lost Runestone. According to the oldest legends, the stone was carved by the gods themselves during the first war between giants and gods. The runes on its surface told a story not of the past, but of the future. The story of the end of the world. The story of Ragnarok. Most warriors believed the stone was nothing more than a myth, until the mountains began to shake. 3 days after the sea beast was seen in the northern waters, a hunter returned to Skarnford with strange news. Leif listened carefully as the man spoke. "I saw it," the hunter said. "What did you see?" Leif asked. "A stone." Leif frowned. "There are many stones in the mountains." The hunter shook his head. "Not like this one." He spread his arms wide. It was taller than a longship mast. The warriors in the hall exchanged uneasy looks. Holdrek the seer stepped forward slowly. "Where?" The hunter pointed toward the northern mountains. "Beyond the broken glacier." The old man's face went pale. The Lost Runestone. Leif looked at him. "You believe the legends?" Holdrek did not answer immediately. Instead he turned toward the dark window of the hall. The black aurora pulsed faintly across the sky. "After everything we have seen," he said quietly, "you still doubt the old legends?" The next morning a small group of warriors left the village. Leif led the expedition. With him traveled the hunter who had discovered the stone, along with 3 other warriors and the old seer Holdrek. The journey north took 2 days. The land had grown darker the farther they traveled. Entire forests had been crushed by falling ice from the broken glaciers. Massive cracks split the frozen valleys. Frozen rivers had shifted from their ancient paths. It looked as if the earth itself had begun to tear apart. At night, the warriors slept beside small fires, but none of them truly rested. The black aurora above the sky flickered like a wound in the heavens. Even the wolves remained silent. By the 3rd morning they reached the place the hunter had described. The warriors stopped in silence. Because the stone truly existed. A massive slab of black rock stood half buried in the frozen ground. It was enormous, at least 3 times the height of a man. Ancient runes covered its surface from top to bottom. The carvings glowed faintly beneath the snow, as if the stone itself still carried power. Leif stepped closer. "I have never seen runes like these." Holdrek slowly approached the stone. His hands trembled as he brushed snow from its surface. "These are not human runes," he whispered. "They were carved by the gods." The warriors gathered around him. "What do they say?" Leif asked. Holdrek studied the stone carefully. His eyes moved slowly across the ancient symbols, then his expression darkened. "These are not warnings." "What do you mean?" "They are a prophecy." The wind howled across the frozen valley. The black aurora flickered faintly in the sky above them. "What prophecy?" one of the warriors asked. Holdrek pointed to the first line of runes. "When the sky burns black." He moved his hand to another carving. "When the beasts of Fenrir return." Another line. "When the mountains awaken." The warriors looked at each other in silence. Everything the runestone described had already begun to happen. Leif felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "What comes next?" Holdrek's voice trembled as he read the next part. "The gate of the end will open." The warriors fell silent. "Ragnarok," Leif whispered. Holdrek nodded slowly. But something else caught his attention. The old man leaned closer to the stone. "These runes, what about them?" "They are broken." Leif stepped forward. And then he saw it. A massive crack ran across the center of the runestone. Several of the carvings had been destroyed, as if someone had deliberately shattered that part of the prophecy. "Who would break a runestone carved by the gods?" Leif asked. Holdrek looked toward the northern horizon. "I do not know." The wind grew stronger. Snow began swirling through the valley. But deep within the broken carvings, one final rune still remained intact. A single symbol, different from all the others. Holdrek traced the rune slowly. "This one shows a gate." Leif frowned. "A gate, yes." Where? Holdrek looked toward the far north. Toward the endless glaciers where the world disappeared into white darkness. "There." The warriors followed his gaze. Far beyond the mountains, far beyond the lands of men, something waited. Something ancient, something powerful enough that the gods themselves had carved warnings into stone. Leif gripped the handle of his axe. If the gate opens, he looked back at the runestone. What happens then? Holdrek's voice was barely a whisper. Then Ragnarok truly begins. The wind howled louder through the valley. The black aurora pulsed across the sky once more. And far beyond the mountains of the north, something deep beneath the ice began to move. If you enjoyed this Viking dark fantasy story, like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter of Frozen Saga. New monsters, ancient legends, and forgotten gods are awakening across the frozen north. This saga is far from over.